here in today's video I'm going to teach you how you can crochet a stitch like this, which actually looks knitted. So here I have just prepared a couple of examples with two different ways how you can do it, and here in this example I have both of the methods. So here you can see this first part, it's a little bit more packed and closer together, while this second part is kind of like a little bit more further apart. So I'm going to show you both of them, and this is how it's going to look. And basically this you can use for all sorts of crochet creations. You can use this stitch to create a beanie, which I'm hoping to do soon, or you can easily also just use this for adding cuffs, or simply if you want to crochet a sweater but if you want to have like a knitted look, then you can also just easily use this method because it really looks like a knit project. But now let's get started, and here I just have some yarn. You can basically use whatever yarn you wish, but I'm going with a little bit thicker yarn, and together with that I'm just going to use a 5mm crochet hook in this example, but otherwise you're more than welcome to do whatever you wish or use whatever materials you wish. And here I'm just going to start with this yarn. And our first step is to basically do a slip knot, and for that I normally just grab my yarn like this, then I twist it to create a cross, and then just grab a loop and pull it through. So we are kind of like creating a knot and also a bigger loop here, and then we are just putting our loop on our crochet hook like this, and then just adjusting a size. And then the next step would be to do some chains. So depending on the project that you are working on, you can just easily measure however many chains are needed and just do that. So for this example I'm just going to go for 12 chains in total. So this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So these are all the chains, and in case if you couldn't follow along, to do a chain you basically just have to yarn over and pull it through the loop like this. So it's very easy, but let me just go back like that. And then to get started on the first row, we will basically be just doing slip stitches, and that will be what we will have to do throughout this project. And to get started we are just skipping the last chain that we did here, and then starting from the next one, this is where we are doing our first slip stitch. So first I'm just going through this chain, then grabbing yarn and pulling it through, and then pulling it through the loop that we already had on our hook like this. So this is the first slip stitch, and then we are just proceeding further with the following chains and doing a slip stitch in each of them. So just go through each of the chain that you have and just grab yarn and pull it through the loop that you have on your hook like this. And then just keep on doing that until you reach the end of this row, and this is how it looks so far. So you can see that we are already creating this like kind of like a V-shape braid, and just continue doing that until you reach the end. So here I am at the very end and just completing the last slip stitch like this. So now this first row is completed, and we can proceed further with the second row. And for that you just have to chain one, then turn your work, and now we can start working on the second row. And the process will basically be the same. The only difference is that we will now be doing these slip stitches inside the back loops of the stitches from the previous row, but otherwise it's the same. But now let's get started. So we are skipping this chain that we just did, and then starting from the next, which is this stitch, we are just going through the back loop. So instead of going through both of these loops, we are only going through this one that is in the back. So I'm just going through and then grabbing yarn, pulling it up, and then pulling it through the loop that we already had like this. So this is the whole process. So again we are just doing slip stitches, but in this case we are doing them in the back loops. And again you just have to keep on doing this, so adding one slip stitch in the back loop of every single stitch that you have here until you reach the end of this row. And it also helps if you try to make them a little bit looser, because then it's easier to work on the following rows when you are adding new stitches inside these back loops. And here I have now completed the second row. So basically from now on, we will just be continuing to repeat this second row that we just did. And to get started, again, we just have to chain one and then turn or work like this. And then we are just doing the same thing, that we are basically just adding slip stitches inside the back loops of the stitches from the previous row. And that is the whole process of how you can create this crochet stitch that looks like a knitted stitch. But now just keep on repeating the same process and keep on repeating this second row that we just did, and continue adding new rows for as long as it's needed until you add the width or the length of this project that you're working on as much as it's required. And now here I have already added multiple rows, and with this you can actually see that this knit alike effect is coming together and it is more pronounced. And by using this slip stitch method, it does take a while because slip stitches don't add quite a lot of volume in terms of length or height of each row, but at the end you can see that you have more like thicker rows and everything is closer together and kind of like more thickness in general. And you also get this stretchy effect once you're trying to stretch it out, so definitely very useful for like adding cuffs or also working on beanies or any sort of borders that you wish. But if you don't have time to deal with these slip stitches, there's also another method, and I will just show it here in this example where I already started to work on it. So in this case you would have more space in between rows and they will be building up a little bit quicker, and for that we would basically have to use something that would be in between half double crochet and a slip stitch, but it will work up a little bit faster. And at the end you will also get this kind of like knit alike look, but it isn't as packed as it is here. But let me just quickly show you. So the process would basically be the same. We just first have to chain one to start a new row and then turn or work like this, and then again we will be working inside these back loops. And the difference here would be that we actually first have to yarn over, then we are going through the back loop and grabbing yarn and then pulling it through the loops that we already had on our hook. So basically the same process as doing a slip stitch, but instead we have now more loops to pull this yarn through. But let's do another one together. So again, yarning over, pulling up yarn and pulling it through all the loops. And kind of like while I'm doing these pull throughs, I also tend to twist my hook a little bit, because in that way it kind of helps me to pull the yarn through, because there are many loops, and in this way it is a little bit easier to deal with that. But yeah, basically the same thing. As I said, it looks something in between a half double crochet and a slip stitch, and definitely it brings a little bit more height to the rows that you are adding. And otherwise the process is pretty much the same. You just have to do the same thing in all the stitches that you have, and remember to do that inside the back loops only. And here I have added just another row, and this is how it looks. And also if I turn it on the other side, you can see how it comes together. And after you're adding a couple of these rows, you will also notice the knit-alike effect a little bit better. And yeah, you can basically use it for similar projects as I mentioned before, for cuffs or for like complete pieces even. But I think for cute little things such as beanies and everything else, it kind of like brings a nice little touch. And here I have already finished multiple rows of this, so you can see how it looks. And here I have both methods together, so you can compare and pick the one that you prefer the most, or whatever fits better for the project that you are planning to work on. But otherwise, I hope that you enjoyed this little tutorial and that it's going to be useful. And if you have any questions, then just feel free to ask in the comment section and I will try to help you from there. Or if you have any requests for future videos, then just let me know and I will try to do my best. And now in the future, at some point, I'm planning to also make a beanie where I would be using this type of stitch, so stay tuned for that. But otherwise, if you did enjoy it, then just please give me a big thumbs up, and if you're new here, then please subscribe, and I hope to see you later. Bye!